Hello everyone and welcome to the 2020 SGO Showcase presented by SGO Insider. I'm Mike Straw, Managing Editor of Sports Gamers Online, and I first want to say on behalf of all of us here at SGO, thank you for making us truly the #1 source for the sports gamer. Now this show, this week, this year is a little different. Originally, our plan was to bring the show to you live from LA, signifying the next big leap for the showcase. But E3 being canceled, events being postponed, things change, including us having to put this together from a makeshift studio in my home office. But the show must go on, and we have so much to bring to you that we couldn't say no. After the success of the 2019 event, we knew though we had to come back bigger and better than ever for 2020. That's why this year we have double the amount of games we had last year, and of those games, 6 of them are appearing in the showcase for the very first time. From football to racing, from current games to upcoming games, there's just so much to get to that let's not waste any more time. We're kicking things off with a 2-for-1 from Wolverine Studios, as they're bringing us a sneak peek at what's to come later this year with Draft Day Sports Pro Football 21 and Draft Day Sports Pro Basketball 21. Draft Day Sports Pro Football 2021 is undergoing a massive transformation this season. The team at Wolverine Studios is bringing back the Alchemium Unlimited platform to the series, just as it did with its basketball titles for 2020. The team is starting with a complete revamp from scratch of the game's user interface, with a focus on the game giving the player an incredible and immersive experience with true full-screen capability, a modern and clean user interface, and the ability to use that interface to provide more data, stats, charts, graphs, and help for your player. The game will have an easy to access and navigate left side menu for all league and team information, and then a user bar along the top of the screen for items related to you, the player. Part of that improved user experience is also giving the user more choices. Here's a look at the game's 2D gameplay screen. As you can see, there's an exit full screen option, giving the player the opportunity to watch a game be played out in a large window and swapping back to the play call screen, or having the option to have the game play out in a smaller window on the main play calling screen. One hallmark of the game is trying to give players as many customization choices and options as possible so that they can have the experience that suits their style of play. Wolverine Studios is also working hard under the hood for Pro Football 21. The AI took a big leap in the 2020 version, and they're continuing to make even more improvements in the areas of roster management and in-game coaching decisions to ensure that you get the most realistic football experience possible out of any football game on the market. The company's theme of building up the user experience is going to be the focal point of all of its design decisions for the 2021 lineup, and that's sure to come through in Draft Day Sports Pro Basketball 21. The team has applied the same menu layout changes here, and are trying to give the player more visual experiences when possible, such as in this screenshot where a text roster has been replaced with player photos and icons to relay data. They've also made changes such as this one in the area of the simulation results screen, so that if you're doing a fast simulation, you can still keep tabs on how your team is doing as the game sim quickly by, as well as getting easier to read and better placed updates about things going on in the league. Lastly, Wolverine Studios is spending time working to add in what they consider to be the best suggestions from the community. One such item requested was the ability to get trade offers on demand, which led the developers to spend time not only adding that feature, but also working to make the AI expand its trade offerings so that the CPU is more willing to do certain things like trade first round picks, and be even smarter about its desire to take on certain types of contracts that may hinder its ability to build through free agency. Both Draft Day Sports Pro Football 21 and Pro Basketball 21 launch later this year, and Wolverine Studios will have more to reveal as the releases near. When it comes to management games, it's clear that Wolverine Studios is looking to make its mark on every sports fan no matter the sport. The only sport that seems to be missing, however, at this point is hockey. But speaking of hockey, let's talk about one of the most unique games to come out in quite some time. A game where you can play as Wayne Gretzky, James Harden, LeBron James, Alex Morgan, and more, all at the same time. That's what you get with Ultimate Rivals The Rink, a 3v3 ice hockey game featuring some of the biggest names in sports, available exclusively for Apple Arcade. SGO was able to talk to Todd Zeal, who's not only a 16-year veteran of Major League Baseball and a commentator on Sportsnet New York, but he's also the Chief Business Development Officer of BitFry, the studio behind Ultimate Rivals The Rink. And we talked to him about the game's launch, future plans for the series, and what fans can expect. Check it out. Right off the bat, Todd, with Ultimate Rivals, how does this idea even come about? As let's get as many licenses as we can and build a fun, in this case, arcade hockey game.
You really got to go back to the beginning, and Ben Friedland, and who was the founder, CEO, had a vision that it was really predicated on the fact that he thought sports video games had been consolidated to the ultra simulated, realistic technical advances of games like Madden and 2K and MLB The Show, and that some of the sports games that he played growing up and loved, like NBA Jam or Blitz and Ballers and Blades of Steel, seemed to be getting pushed out of the gaming category. And he felt, as a consumer, and he felt as somebody analyzing the gaming market, that there was there was a place in that market for the resurgence of arcade action video games. So it really started from that premise. And then once he and I connected and started looking at the MLB license from, the MLB Players Association and the Major League Baseball, we recognized that they had an appetite for something different in the marketplace as well. And then Ben's vision was, hey, what if we were able to make this about players and to be able to cross the IP? And that was really sort of the secret sauce that I think allowed us to navigate through that minefield of licensors as we did, and become partners with and have great on-standing partnerships with the leagues and PAs.
When it comes to the type of game it is, for Ultimate Rivals The Rink, it's a hockey game. Was this type of environment, this idea, always the original, or were other sports floated about for the first installment of the franchise?
There had always been a plan to have multiple games. The beachhead was the hockey game, and that comes from Ben's avid love of gaming in particular, but because he wanted to work into our game to not just have it be a farcical, over-the-top, action game. He wanted to have real core game dynamics built into this game that also allowed for the advanced gamer to really get into, the moves. And so he thought that the closed rink, the, continuous play, fast action, very simple narrative, get the goal into the net. There's no icing. There's no face-offs like there used to be. There's, we kind of eliminated a lot of those extraneous factors, so it could just be guys on the ice going quickly, attacking the puck, and showing off their own attributes. And so that's why he geared towards hockey first. And he was an avid fan of hockey games growing up as well. So he thought that was the beachhead that could show the dynamics of his vision, which was fast play, over the top, modified, and then from that point be able to expand, as we're doing, into the other sports universe.
With the next installment of the series being Ultimate Rivals The Court, how exactly does licensing work in all this? Does the licensing carry over to each game, or do you have to do licensing individually for every single title you guys decide to build and release in the series?
That's a really good question, and we have it built in because it's a very complex licensing matrix, as you can imagine. We have long-term licenses with all of our licensors, and it allows for their IP, the players or the marks, being crossed over into a non-native sport, as well as being adapted to their own native sport. So no, we do not have to re-up. We have license deals that extend for the full platform or universe that is Ultimate Rivals.
With all these licenses, what would you attribute to being the biggest challenge to getting all of these from the NHL, NBA, WNBA, women's national team, and so on?
Yeah, and more and more and more, right?
Yeah,
I mean, the NFL players that had, were licensed with Madden, and all of these licensors have their IP in other video games. The challenge was to create a system that allowed us to differentiate between the licensors, to be able to show when we're exploiting, if you will, their license. So we had to make sure that we were going down the road of building a specific game for each of the sports, and then there would be a minimum, like the Players Association's minimums are 6 players from the group license have to be utilized in the same fashion. So when we start a hockey game, we have 30 players, but we also add 6 players from each of those other licensors to be able to adhere to our licensing guidelines, but add a twist, an element into the game for the gamer. So certainly it was a challenge for us to be able to work with all the licensors to get them to understand the overall vision and to really buy into that crossover element, because it had never really been done before. It had never really been tried before. And if it was in a simulation game, this goes back to the last 20 years being, consolidated to sim games. Crossing players in and out of sim games doesn't really work. You think, oh, well, that's LeBron James, the hockey player. He's going to hit 120 in Major League Baseball. How is he going to? So this is, we're not playing with the actual athletes. We're playing with sort of this digital representation of the athletes, and they are sort of like this larger-than-life superhero type of form, and their attributes get applied to whatever they're doing. And so that sort of conceit that we came up with enabled the licensors to really buy into that crossover element. And then from there, it was just a matter of working out, some of the logistical pieces that made sure that we abide by all the licenses at the same time.
Now, with the game being exclusively on Apple Arcade right now, has there been any sort of pushback of possibly alienating a market who don't have Apple products, won't get Apple products to play your game? Or are there plans in place to bring the series over to other platforms, including consoles down the line?
Absolutely a plan. I mean, the plan was really to build a fully vetted, deep console game. This was always intended to be a console title. There's, fighter game dynamics built into it. There's a lot of depth that is going to be really noticeable when we have, multiplayer online competitive play. And so it was always being built that way. We just happened to be at a great inflection point when we were, we had license deals essentially done and some signed, and we were looking at which move we were going to make to get to the market first. And that was at the time that, Google was, looking to launch Stadia, and there was Amazon talking about doing things, and there was a lot of other things in the marketplace that got our attention, and we got their attention. And quite honestly, Apple came in at a great time for us, at a time that they were launching a platform. They wanted to have sort of a large tentpole game with IP to be able to, to offer to the consumer. And so we just sort of flipped our roadmap a little bit, and mobile was definitely going to be the second frontier for us initially. And we just flipped the roadmap a little bit because of this great partnership with Apple and the ability to really get a lot of exposure to the games and still have that ability to go to console after we've shown ourselves on iOS.
We'll wrap it up here with questions about plans for the future. Are there plans to add more modes or players or things like that to the Rink? Or will new updates to the franchises only come as new games in the series are released? So the court will have new features and a football version will have new features.
Both. That's a good question. There's going to be continual updates and modifications to the Rink as it's in the marketplace, as we're preparing it to go to console. And the same lessons that we're learning, the same data that we're analyzing is going into the build of the court and then the gridiron and the diamond, even early iterations of those as we speak. So this will be games as a service. This will be a game that is continually updated with not only new characters and some new ultimate moves and things like that, but also new features and gaming dynamics that really lead to what the ultimate goal is, which is that very competitive online experience when you, whether it be, through players that are on arcade or console PC.
Hello, my name is Justin Sutton, and I'm the community manager at 704 Games, and with me, I'm joined by game designer Elliot Henderson.
How's it going, guys?
And we are working on NASCAR Heat 5. First of all, Elliot, why don't you go ahead and tell us about this scheme, which we're seeing for the first time today?
Yeah, obviously with the introduction of Jeff Gordon last year, getting a lot of older content in is always cool for the fans. So this year, aside from this scheme, which I'll talk about in a second, we've also got the 2016 Homestead scheme that Tony Stewart ultimately retired with, as well as his Office Depot car that he ran in 2011 and beat Carl Edwards out for the championship. But this car is pretty special. It's his last car that he won in. He beat Denny Hamlin in a really close race at Sonoma, thus the racing at Sonoma today. And it capped off a really impressive career with 3 championships and everything that obviously Tony's done. I believe it's close to 50 wins, 49 to be exact. So it was a good car to definitely push to include this year, and we're happy that we're able to bring it to the fans.
Yeah, an absolutely gorgeous scheme, looking fantastic out there at Sonoma. And since we have a few minutes to talk about NASCAR Heat 5, let's go ahead and talk about some of the new features we've got in this year's game. First of all, we have a very highly requested feature, which is the test session mode. Tell us a little bit about that. Yeah,
you took the words out of my mouth. Highly requested is definitely it. The community itself has been asking for something like this, and a lot of the esports type guys, especially with us doing the Pro League and doing the qualifiers, it's been a very, very highly requested feature because, people want to get in, they want to mess with their setups, they want to be able to change things, but the AI sometimes affect how that happens with either draft or just kind of getting in the way. Maybe they're too slow, they're too fast at certain points. So this is a good way for users to go in to get their setup fine-tuned, dial in all those bugs, worry about your tire wear, check your fuel consumption, maybe mess with your gearing a little bit, and then, either check it out with AI in a quick race or jump into online, see how you do against your friends, kind of come back with some type of setup changes that you may need to make later. But it's a good tool to kind of let people get away from AI racing and dealing with that and having to go in and out of a practice session, and you can just jump in, do a test session all by yourself, mess with your setup, and come back out with hopefully the proper direction and a race-winning setup.
And speaking about going up against your friends, we've got time to talk about one more topic. And another feature we've got this year is we've got the online challenges available in NASCAR Heat 5, which is something we've mentioned before, but haven't really discussed at great length. So go ahead and break it down for us.
Yeah, online challenges is another kind of cool feature that we really came up with that allows you to ultimately compare yourself against other people through these challenge scenarios. So it's pulling that offline challenges that we do and applying them into an online environment. And it just creates these either fictional or real life scenarios that we'll come up with, and we'll release a new one every so often. I don't know what the timeline is on that quite yet, but it'll keep this refresher, as well as leaderboards so that people can compare themselves. And then the other caveat to that is that it's broken up into settings. So depending on whether you use the normal mode, the hard mode, or the expert mode, you can go in and play those challenges based off of your own assist settings that you use. So we're hoping that maybe this will take those people that play normal mode or hard mode and give them a little bit extra incentive to go up and try expert and see how they fare against other people like that. But it's a good way to just kind of, keep the community together and give them overall objectives throughout the weeks and months that the game's released, and we're continually adding new content to just kind of, it's an ego boost, really. It's it's that bragging effect of, I'm beating you in the leaderboards right now. So it's a very cool feature that I think is gonna go pretty far.
We are very excited about these features and much more for NASCAR Heat 5. That's it for our time. Thanks to Sports Gamers Online for having us, and thanks to everybody for tuning in. And we hope to see you on track July 7th with the NASCAR Heat 5 Gold Edition pre-order. Visit preorder.nascarheat.com for details.
We're just a month away from getting behind the wheel of our favorite stock cars in NASCAR Heat 5. But that's not the only racing game launching this July. Let's move from the world of stock car racing to that of Formula 1. F1 2019 was widely regarded as one of the best F1 games ever released, including getting a 10 out of 10 rating from us. With F1 2020, the team at Codemasters doesn't plan on being complacent, as they're bringing fans a whole new mode in My Team, along with a number of new improvements. We sat down with Lee Mather, the game director of the F1 series at Codemasters, to talk about F1 2020 and the series as a whole. Lee, first off, I want to thank you for taking the time to join me here during what's probably, admittedly, the busiest time for your team, with launch just a few short weeks away.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, overall, after the success of F1 2019, when you guys look to add to the game this year, what do you do to make sure you don't get too complacent?
Well, I think we've kind of had this momentum running since F1 2016, to be honest, and it's that momentum that keeps you driving and keeps the momentum going. The positive reaction that we get in year on year, keeps the team really invested in the game, really driven. Also, the investment that we've had as a business, we've grown the team over the last couple of years. We've seen, obviously, the sales do very well. We've seen the engagement with the game and with the sport, obviously, in recent years with Liberty's involvement, change and grow as well. So, really, we feel like rather than it becoming an annual grind, it's more of a snowball effect that's just building and building every year.
Now, with 2020 itself, the big new addition this year is, of course, the My Team feature. It's not the traditional career mode that fans have been accustomed to, though that's still in the game. But what is the mode going to do to try and pull those types of players who prefer that traditional career mode as opposed to a larger management style mode?
I think by the nature of the fact they are so different, I think you'll want a piece of both. So obviously in the traditional driver career, you're the driver, you're the commodity, you want to be racing for the best team, but those teams also want to get the best driver, and you want that to be you. Whereas in My Team, it's a very different experience. It's a lot less, I would say, selfish experience to a degree. Formula One drivers, even though they're part of a team and there's two of them, it's all about, they want to win, they want to be the best. Whereas the dynamic changes quite massively when you're on track in My Team, because you're supporting your teammates. You're not necessarily worried about them being in front of you, because the benefit comes to both of you. And then obviously all of the things that you have to do to run a Formula One team really do differentiate My Team from the driver career. So I think I can see a lot of people actually playing both. I think you'll find that the experiences are so different that you'll want that traditional, I'm the driver, I'm the superstar, to the whole, I'm the driver, I'm the superstar, I'm also the team boss, and there's a much bigger picture.
It sounds a lot like a sim management mode. You see these management type games really rise to popularity over the years. Is this F1's attempt to kind of grasp into that market?
I think I always like to say that, first and foremost, we're a racing game, so that is the main focus. The on-track experience is still the core of Formula One. It is a racing title. It's not a management game, but now we have a very strong management element. But as we've done with everything else in our Formula One series, we've not gone to the real extremes of making it inaccessible and managing fine details in spreadsheets, for example. It's very much inspired by the flavour of running a Formula One team. The things that the fans hear about, how they're managing, a driver needs to be doing press activities or in the wind tunnel or, out at even an evening meal with the team, for example, to motivate departments, things like that. So it's very much managing the team, but also the flavour of Formula One is brought into that as well.
Moving to gameplay specifically, and one of the things I've noticed over my years of covering racing titles is that tire management and tire wear seems to be arguably the most difficult aspect of any sort of development. What is F1 2020 doing compared to other titles or past iterations of the series in order to really get that realistic tire wear and usage that fans are coming to expect as we move further on in generations?
Yeah, there's a lot of time and effort goes into the setup. There's also a lot of people way more intelligent than me that write some very, very intense physics stuff, which just blows your mind. And even though I don't understand what they're doing, having the discussions with them is just so exciting, and they get so enthusiastic about it as well. And obviously, tyre wear is such a massive element in Formula One. We've always had it in the game. It's always something we've wanted to make sure was right. But not just the way that the tyres wear or the way that you pick up the marbles or the dirt or when, you get on the marbles, how they affect the grip levels. All of those things we simulate. And this year we've gone a little bit further as well with the way that the tyres feel. Because obviously the connection that the player has to the tarmac is obviously the most important thing in how they can navigate the circuits. So this year we've done some work on the physics, which actually gives you a much better sensation of traction. So some of the feedback we got from the drivers was that we didn't have the traction feel quite right, that we had too little grip at the rear. So we've managed to make some changes to not only the inertia physics, but also in the tyre model slightly. And that, again, knocks onto the way the car brakes as well. So we've got now a car which feels way closer to a Formula One car. And that's feedback we've had this year already on the beta, which we've got in the hands of some of the drivers.
With this being such a weird year for obvious reasons, and sports have been pretty much ground to a halt for a long time, a lot of people transferred over to the virtual racetrack, including real drivers. What did that do for your team at Codemasters and development of the game? Did you get more feedback from the drivers because of this, or were things pretty much status quo as they have been?
No, I mean, it's kind of weird. It's kind of expected to a degree, but we've had unparalleled access to teams and drivers that we've not traditionally had at this point in the project because they would be traveling the world. They would be flat out running their Formula One season. But at the moment, obviously, they've got a little bit more free time. So we've sat down with Formula One engineers in the last few weeks, and they've given us feedback from their drivers on things that they like in the game, things that they don't, things that we wouldn't have any clue of, anything we couldn't understand. So yeah, we've had incredible access. And I think they've also realised through the VGPs that the game's a really credible platform to showcase people's driving abilities and talent.
With F1 2020 launching July 10th, is there anything else you want the fans to know before the game's release?
Well, we've touched upon My Team, which is a vast new mode. It's probably the biggest shake-up we've had in the game in a very long time. The driver career has always been incredibly successful, very, very popular with the fans. Everybody loves it and plays season upon season. And then obviously now My Team, we're expecting players to really engage with that. There's going to be the ability to create your team, pick your real engine supplier, pick a sponsor, hire a teammate from Formula 2. I think people are really excited that they can develop a driver from the world of Formula 2 into Formula 1, and then they become part of the driver market. They move around within the sport. That really mixes things up. But as well as the very hardcore end of the scale, and also the broader sort of gameplay features such as My Team, we've also looked really heavily this year at things like split screen. So we've added split screen, which really broadens the appeal. But in order for us to do split screen effectively, we've added some accessibility stuff to the game as well. So now there's a mode where you actually have a very accessible on-track experience. So you can basically sit on the settee with anybody who's not even a particularly good racing game player and race with them side by side. So that you get the fun of split screen, but you get the accessibility of simplified off-track surfaces, a steering assist, an automatic reset to track. So, while we're always striving to be accurate in Formula One and create huge game experiences such as My Team, we're also looking at that casual sort of couch fun mode as well that players can play and get together.
Lee, I just want to thank you again for joining me here today on the SGO Showcase. F1 2020 launches July 10th for PC, PS4, Xbox One, and for the first time ever, Google Stadia. Welcome back, everyone, to this makeshift studio here for the 2020 SGO Showcase. It's been a great show so far, and we hope you're enjoying everything you've seen from F1 2020, NASCAR Heat 5, Draft Day Sports Pro Football and Pro Basketball 21, and Ultimate Rivals. Now we have a lot more to get to, but before we go any further, let's take a minute to talk about SGO Insider. SGO Insider is our premium Patreon subscription service that unlocks you exclusive access to insider news and information, early access to our guides and tips, a chance to play the latest sports games before they release, and so much more. On top of that, Sports Gamers Online is donating 100% of the proceeds earned from SGO Insider to various community racial justice organizations across the United States for the remainder of 2020. To learn more, head on over to patreon.com/sportsgamersonline or follow the link in the description below and sign up for SGO Insider today. Now it's time to head on over to the football field, and we have Danny Jugan, the owner and lead developer of Axis Games, here with us to talk about Axis Football 2020. Take it away, Danny.
What is going on, everybody? My name is Danny Jugan. I am the president and lead developer for Axis Football, and I am so excited to be a part of the SGO Showcase again this year. We've got some super exciting things to show off in this video today. We're going to start with some gameplay improvements that we've been working on. We'll show you some new animations that we put in, some of the new UI redesigns that we have done, and we will wrap up with some esports information. Just a reminder what we're doing there. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you guys some brand new gameplay improvements that we've been doing. So I'm going to pull up this video, and I'm going to go ahead and pause it here. This is a recording I took earlier today, and 2020, one of the big things that we wanted to focus on was improving the gameplay itself. The actual X's and O's of football and how it's executed on the field was an area that we could really improve. And one of those areas that we're going to show off today is catching in stride. For the past couple of years, one of the things that has plagued Axis Football was the stopping of the receivers at the place where the ball would land or arrive, and this would create an unnecessary delay in the player turning, and it's just not realistic football. Most of the time you see a player catching a football, they catch it in stride and they don't stop moving. So we spent a lot of time working on that this season, and we want to show that off today. So I've got 3 different clips with a decent quarterback, so you can see how accuracy does play a factor into it, but that most of the catches will happen in stride now. So I'm just going to let these play and kind of talk through them. So we got a short crossing route here, kind of a drag off the beginning of the play, and the receiver reaches up to catch the ball. And you can see he catches it in stride without any sort of stopping during the process. So we got another one here. I'll apologize for this. So again, this is a receiver coming out of the backfield, kind of an over-the-shoulder catch. I'm going to rewind it a little bit, and we're going to watch it again. So watch 24 coming out of the backfield. He just kind of dumps it, looking over the shoulder, hands extended, catches it, and in stride down the sideline. I'm going to show you one final one, and I'm going to pause this before we get here. One of the things that we have done this year is we have completely redesigned the whole user interface. Every single scrap of it is gone, and we are going with a much more consistent look. And so you get a kind of tiny glimpse of it right here with the new design of the playbook and the score clock across the top as we approach our release in late August or early September. We will show off more of the new UI. Let me get back to this. All right, so this is I believe this is a deep cross or a deep in for this play, just to give you guys a few different routes and how the catch and stride looks across some different routes. So we see here, he's going to throw it to the right bump here. It's kind of a deep, so this is, the throw itself is about almost 17 yards, but he's about 10 yards deep from the line of scrimmage. You can see he's going to catch it in stride. Let me pull it back a little bit. You'll see his hands are extended right here. He's looking at the ball, hands are extended. I'm going to pull it back just a little bit because you can see at the point where he actually starts. So right here, he's running his route. And as soon as the quarterback throws the ball, you can see the receiver look up to track the ball. So he's tracking the ball, hands are extended, catches it in stride, and runs down the sideline. So that was all from the same drive. Just to give you an idea, massively increased the number of catches in stride, which is really going to improve gameplay. And again, that's just one small sample of how we are improving gameplay for Axis 20. If you want to see what it was like, you can go back and look at some of the videos in Axis 19. All right, so the next thing I'm going to show you guys are some animations that we've added. Now, we made public last year that we purchased a motion capture suit, so we are in the process of adding tons of new animations to the game. It's part of our 2-year plan that we are going to see that happen over the next two seasons. We're going to be adding tons of animations. So what I want to do is show you just a couple that we've added so far. In fact, I'm going to go to the pickup ball animation first. And in these videos, what we're going to do is I'm actually going to show you what it looked like in 2019, and then I'm going to show you what it's going to look like in 2020, kind of like a before and after view here. So first thing I'm going to do is we're going to take a look at, this is Axis 2019. So what you're looking at here, this is 2019. This is last year's version. And we're going to take a look at what happens when a fumble occurs or the football's on the ground. All right, so I've got it set to where fumble happens, quarterback gets hit, ball's on the ground, and what we would have in 2019 is these players would actually run up and the ball would magically teleport to their hands. So you're going to see they're just going to run on top of it and it's going to whoop, flips up into their hands. All right, let me rewind it, show you one more time. Ball just flips up into their hands. Okay, now what we were missing there is the animation actually bend down and pick up the football. So let's take a look at what it's going to be like in 2020. So the video is going to skip over. We're going to hop into 2020 and we see the updated UI. And this, just a disclaimer, these stadiums are just our test stadiums. These are the classic ones that we use in the mobile version. They aren't the ones that you'll see in the final game. But quarterback drops back here, and again, he's going to get hit and drop the football, just like before. So he gets hit. Nice tackle animation. He goes to the ground, and you can see these players now are already going in to scoop up the football. Okay, and again, this is a very minor change. I'll watch full speed here. Very minor change, and the outcome isn't really affected, but it adds a lot to the visual integrity of the game. This is what we would expect to see players doing, bending down and picking up the football. Just one small example of how we are making the game look better and improving the gameplay. Last thing I want to chat about is our esports league. This is something that we are super excited to launch at the beginning of August. We are going to be running a competitive online esports league. And the way this is going to work is we're going to use our new 2-player coach mode. So this is a local 2-player mode that we're going to be able to play online using Steam's remote play. So 2 players are going to be able to connect and play each other without physically sitting in the same room. And we're going to run an esports league based off of that. So each player is going to be able to represent one of the teams. So we're going to have 36 players in our esports league, and each one of them is going to represent one of the 36 teams. And they're going to go through a whole season. We're giving cash prizes in the thousands of dollars to the winners of that. So definitely stay tuned to that. If you want more information about that, you can check our YouTube or our Twitter. We have videos specific to that. And applications are still open. So again, if that's something you're interested, definitely check out those videos or our website to see how to apply for that. So that's it. Again, we want to thank Sports Gamers Online for the opportunity to come in and show off what we've been working on. We are very excited to get into the 2020 season and for you guys to get your hands on this game. So thanks again, and we'll be in touch.
There's no doubt that Access Football 2020 is moving the series forward in a number of ways. But there's another independently developed football game coming out this year that's looking to make a major leap for players, and that's Doug Flutie's Maximum Football 2020. With a new partnership with Unity in tow, Doug Flutie's Maximum Football 2020 is bringing players a number of improvements both on and off the field, and that includes a couple of brand new features being revealed right here at the 2020 SGO Showcase. The first new feature is the Maximum Play Designer that'll allow players to create a full playbook to use within the game by way of customizing existing plays, as well as creating brand new plays on both offense and defense. In addition to the play creation itself, you'll be able to implement various strategies with your plays, including coverage options, blitz packages, progression reads, and even setting players in motion. Now also coming to Maximum Football 2020 is what Canuck Play is dubbing Dynasty Mode 2.0. An upgrade to the popular mode that debuted in last year's game, the expanded Dynasty Mode introduces play calling tendencies for each of the 130 teams in the mode, a brand new sim engine, an improved player generator for recruits and rosters, news headlines to add more personality to your mode, seasonal awards, conference championships, transfers, and more. On the field, the game will see changes to the defensive AI, including the ability to catch deflected passes. There'll also be faster QB release animations, improved pass blocking and lineman interactions, and general running back movement updates, including the placement of the ball in the arms. Doug Flutie's Maximum Football 2020 launches this September for Xbox One and PlayStation 4. And that, sports gamers, as I welcome you back here to the makeshift studio here in my home, is the wrap on the 2020 SGO Showcase. The second of what we hope is many, many more to come. Now it's time to get a bit sappy, I guess. Thank you to everyone who made this show possible. Whether you just watch the show now, you've been a longtime viewer of SGO, or you support us on SGO Insider, your support, your viewership, and your dedication make shows like this possible, and it's the reason why we've become, as I said at the top of the show, the #1 source for the sports gamer. To all the developers and publishers who put up with countless emails and messages over the last few months, thank you for making this year's event bigger than I could even have imagined it being, and we can't wait to work with you again and make 2021 even better, hopefully under different circumstances. Until next time, please take care of one another. I'm Mike Straw, signing off. But wait a minute. Before we go, we have one more thing for all of you tuning in. Check it out.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to RetroMania Wrestling! Put your tights on, turn the mics on, clear the way because I'm about to drop a pipe bomb. 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get it cracking in the hood. Let's go! Put your tights on, turn the mics on. Clear the way because you're looking at an icon. 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get it cracking in the hood. Let's go! I done wrestled with an alligator, tussled with a whale, handcuffed, lightning, thrown thunder in jail. Man, I injured a stone, hospitalized a brick. I'm so mean, I make medicine sick. From arcades to arenas, I take my bumps. Innovator of violence, but I lay down jumps like I'm Tommy Dreamer. Make fanatics out of non-believers. Now anybody can catch it just like a wide receiver. Crowd pleaser, ain't no icons left. And then that snack on danger and dying on death. Legion of doom whenever you see me in the room. 20 officials, nah, you gon' need a platoon. See, I hand out L's like judges hand sentences. Potential limitless, and the winner is. Make a rant, I keep it hella drastic. Make moves, you'll never telegraph it. This is RetroMania, we ready to fight. Keep it old school, we can do whatever you like. It goes 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get it cracking in the hood. Let's go! This is RetroMania, we ready to fight. We keep it old school, we can do whatever you like. It goes 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get it cracking in the hood. Let's go! You don't have enough stars for you to properly rate me. And we put up the barricade, but it's not for your safety. That you putting me over and I'll be putting you through. A couple tables unstable, so what are you gonna do? Nothing but lose. This juice, you never will get it. Cause you'll be doing the selling while I'll be selling the tickets. Yeah, slingshot, suplex, ring rock, screw neck, leg lock, crucifix, been hot. Who's next? Say the word, your whole crew gets slaughtered. Break the spray cans out, make it a blue world order, yeah. Foreign objects, I cause a distraction. Carry on like it's part of the action. Guaranteed satisfaction. I've been up and I've been down the road. And every time I go, I done made a name for laying down my foes. RetroMania, and now you know we got a common goal. Trying to get my hands on 10 pounds of gold. RetroMania, we ready to fight. Keep it old school. We can do whatever you like. It goes 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get it cracking in the hood. Let's go. This is RetroMania, we ready to fight. We keep it old school. We can do whatever you like. It goes 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get it cracking in the hood. Let's go.